Everyone liked me at work. That was the problem. Actually, it was worse than that. They didn't just like me, they felt safe with me. I was the office equivalent of a backup generator or a sturdy piece of furniture. You don't notice it until you need it, and you never worry about it breaking down. I was the person people trusted with the unglamorous tasks, the formatting nightmares, the last minute data fixes, the quiet responsibility. I was the one who stayed late on Tuesdays because Kevin has that thing with his kids, or Sarah is just so overwhelmed right now. I was the one who said, no problem, even when it was a huge problem, even when it meant canceling my own dinner plans or eating a cold sandwich at my desk while the cleaning crew vacuumed around my feet. Reliable. That word followed me like a shadow. It was in every meeting introduction. It was the bolded headline of every performance review. "You're such a reliable presence, Alex," my manager once said during a chaotic launch week. She smiled, looking genuinely relieved as she handed me a stack of files that weren't my job. "I don't know what we'd do without you." I smiled back. I always smiled back. But inside, something sunk. It felt heavy, like swallowing a stone, because no one ever called me interesting or visionary or bold, and certainly never someone we couldn't afford to lose. I was necessary, sure, but I wasn't vital. I was maintenance, not architecture. Then came the Tuesday that changed everything. It was late afternoon, the time of day when the office air feels recycled and everyone is mentally checking out. I was clearing old emails, archiving threads from a project that had closed months ago. That's when I found it. A thread I wasn't meant to be on, a reply-all mistake that had been quickly buried. It wasn't a scandal, it wasn't dramatic gossip or a secret plot. In a way, that made it hurt more. It was just a mundane planning discussion between senior managers about future team leads. My name appeared once, near the bottom. "What about moving Alex to the strategy team?" one director had asked. The reply from my own boss came 4 minutes later. "Let's keep them where they are. Reliable, but not disruptive. We need stability in ops more than we need new ideas there right now." Reliable, but not disruptive. I stared at the screen. The cursor blinked, mocking me. The hum of the air conditioning suddenly seemed deafeningly loud. Not disruptive. They weren't wrong. That was the stinging truth of it. I didn't disrupt processes. I didn't challenge bad ideas if it meant awkward conflict. I didn't take risks that might fail. I smoothed things over. I patched the cracks so the ship wouldn't sink, but I never asked where the ship was actually going. I made things work. And somehow, that competence had become my cage. My reliability had become the ceiling of my career. That evening, I stayed late again. Of course I did. The office became a ghost town. The motion sensor lights clicked off in the hallway, leaving me in a pool of artificial blue light from my monitors. Outside, the city was glowing, people going to dinners, to dates, to lives, while I sat there fixing a spreadsheet that no one would read until Thursday. I finished everything on my list, every single checkbox ticking off with dutiful precision. Then I didn't leave. My hands hovered over the keyboard. My heart was hammering a strange, uneven rhythm against my ribs. I opened a blank document. The white page looked terrifyingly open. I typed a sentence I'd never allowed myself to even think before. What would break if I stopped protecting everyone else from discomfort? I sat there, breathing hard as if I'd just run a mile. I didn't know the answer, but for the first time in 5 years, I didn't feel tired. I felt something close to excitement, a cold shop electric current, and fear, mostly fear, but it was better than feeling like furniture. The opportunity came disguised as a problem, a familiar one. It arrived late on a Thursday afternoon, slithering into my inbox at 4:45 p.m. A client request, marked urgent, vague details, poorly scoped expectations. The subject line was practically screaming in all caps. It was the kind of messy, shapeless grenade that usually landed on my desk with an unspoken expectation. Alex will handle it. Alex always pulls the pin safely. My manager, David, forwarded the email 2 minutes later with a message so short it was almost insulting. "Can you take this?" I stared at the screen. The cursor blinked at me, a rhythmic demand for action. The old me, the reliable me, would have replied in seconds. I would have already been opening a fresh project file, canceling my gym plans, and typing, "Sure, on it, don't worry." My fingers actually hovered over the keys. The muscle memory was so strong it was physical. I felt the urge to fix it, to make David's stress go away, to be the good soldier. Instead, I did something that made my pulse spike so hard I could hear it in my ears. I moved my hand away from the keyboard. I didn't delete the email, I just left it read. I waited, not hours, just long enough for the silence to become wait, just long enough for the lack of an instant yes to become a statement in itself. The next morning, during the status meeting, the issue came up. The conference room was warm, smelling of stale coffee and whiteboard markers. David tapped his pen on the table, scanning the room. "So, regarding the request from the Miller account," he said, his eyes inevitably drifting toward me, "what's our game plan here?" The room went quiet. Normally, this was my cue. This was the moment I would lean forward, open my notebook, and say, "I've already looked into it, here's what we do." I felt the familiar pull. It was an ache in my chest, the reflex to step in, to smooth the jagged edges, to protect the room from the discomfort of not knowing. I took a sip of water. I put the glass down slowly. I didn't lean forward. "There isn't one yet," I said calmly. My voice sounded steady, even though my hands were shaking under the table. "The request is too vague. It needs clarification on the budget and scope before we commit resources." The room went absolutely still. Someone shifted in their leather chair, the squeak sounding like a gunshot. Marketing Jen cleared her throat nervously. David blinked. He looked at me like I had started speaking French. "That's new," a colleague muttered, half joking, glancing between me and the boss. I managed a small, tight smile. "So is the situation." David frowned. He wasn't angry, he looked confused, unmoored. "We usually just figure it out on the fly, don't we?" "I know," I replied, holding his gaze. "That's part of the problem. We figure it out so the client never learns to ask correctly." The words hung in the air, heavy and solid. The meeting moved on eventually, but the energy in the room had shifted. The air pressure had changed. I could feel it in the side glances, the careful, polite tone people used with me afterward. I wasn't just Alex the fixer anymore. I was a variable they hadn't calculated. Later that afternoon, David called me into his office. He closed the door. That was never a good sign. "Are you okay?" he asked, sitting on the edge of his desk, trying to look casual. "You seemed different in the meeting today. Is everything all right at home?" "I am fine. I'm just being more honest about what I can and can't absorb." There was a pause. He looked at me with that pitiable expression managers use when they think you're burning out, but don't want to offer you a raise to fix it. "You know, Alex, being reliable is a strength. It's your brand," he said carefully. "I know, but it shouldn't be my only one, and it shouldn't be a trap." He didn't have a response to that. After I walked out, doubt crept in immediately. It washed over me like cold water. Had I gone too far? Was this how it started? Was this how people became difficult? Was I destroying 5 years of goodwill in 24 hours? By the end of the week, the client issue still wasn't resolved. The email sat there, unanswered by me, flagged red by someone else. And for the first time in my career, the fire was burning, and it wasn't my fault. That realization sat in my stomach, uncomfortable, sharp, and terrifying. But as I walked to the subway, leaving the office on time for the first Friday in months, I realized something else. It was also, strangely, intoxicatingly freeing. The situation didn't just escalate. It unraveled. The client pushed back, hard. By Tuesday, the emails weren't just sharp, they were weaponized. Bold red text, question marks multiplied. Vice presidents were CC'd on threads that used to stop at my desk. In the past, this was the exact frequency that triggered my fixer instinct. I would have felt the panic rising in the team and instinctively smothered it. I would have stayed until 9 p.m., rewritten the scope myself, apologized for mistakes I didn't make, and made the tension disappear before leadership even noticed the tremors. This time, I didn't. I let it burn. I didn't ignore the work, but I changed the geometry of it. I documented the gaps in logic. I forwarded impossible questions back to the people who asked them instead of inventing answers. I asked for decisions instead of making them alone in the dark. The discomfort spread through the office like a bad flu. You could feel it in the hallways. People were stressed because the safety net, me, was gone. During an emergency sync on Wednesday, a senior lead finally slammed his hand on the table. It wasn't violent, just exhausted. "Why is this suddenly such a big deal?" he snapped, looking directly at me. "We've handled worse than this. Why are we stalling?" The room went quiet. All eyes drifted to me. I looked around. Everyone looked tired, but not from the problem itself. They were tired from the effort of pretending the system wasn't broken. "Because we always handle it," I said. My voice was lower than usual, forcing them to lean in. "And because we always handle it silently, it never actually gets fixed." Silence. Not the awkward silence of a paused conversation, the heavy, dense silence of a truth landing in the center of the table. I continued, slower now, choosing my words like stones. "We keep absorbing bad inputs, vague requests, and impossible deadlines, and we call it reliability. But we aren't being reliable, we're just hiding the risk. We hide it until it gets too heavy, and then it lands on one person to carry it across the finish line." I didn't say me. I didn't need to. The exhausted circles under my eyes over the last 5 years said it for me. My manager, David, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed tight over his chest. He looked at the whiteboard, then at the angry client email projected on the screen, and finally at me. "So, what are you suggesting?" he asked. His tone wasn't defensive anymore. It was almost curious. "I'm suggesting that for once," I said, "we let the problem be visible. Even if it's uncomfortable, even if the client yells, we let the cracks show so we can actually repair the foundation." That was the moment. The one where I felt the old version of myself tugging frantically at my sleeve, screaming, "Stop, this is dangerous. You are being difficult. You are being a problem. They'll remember this." But another thought followed, colder and clearer. They already remember me, but they remember me as furniture. I'd rather be remembered as the person who pointed out the fire than the one who burned quietly to keep everyone else warm. The decision went up the chain. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't clean. There were angry phone calls. A deadline was missed, an actual, sacrosanct deadline. But for the first time, the panic wasn't mine alone. The responsibility was shared. The weight was distributed. Later that evening, the office was emptying out. The storm had passed, leaving a strange, vibrating calm in its wake. David stopped by my desk. He looked drained. "You know," he said, leaning against the partition, "you made things a lot harder this week. I had to explain this mess to the VP." I nodded, not looking up from my screen. "I know." He studied me for a long moment. I braced myself for the reprimand, for the lecture on team spirit. "It was harder," he admitted quietly, "but it was also clearer. We actually got the budget increase we needed." I stopped typing. I looked up. "I'm glad," I said. He tapped the desk once, a small gesture of a truce, and walked away. I sat there for a long time after he left. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel happy. I felt exposed. Being reliable meant being invisible. It meant safety. I had traded that safety for respect. And as I packed my bag, I realized that clarity had a cost. I was finally paying it. And for the first time, I was okay with the price. The fallout didn't come as a confrontation. There were no shouting matches, no disciplinary hearings. It came as a shift in gravity. The atmosphere in the office changed. Meetings became strangely functional. Agendas were clearer because they had to be. Decisions started getting written down in follow-up emails instead of vanishing into the ether of Alex will figure it out. But something else happened, something harder to adjust to. The silence. Tasks stopped quietly landing on my desk just in case. At first, that didn't feel like freedom. It felt like panic. It felt like a phantom limb. My brain was so wired to anticipate disaster that the absence of crisis made me jittery. I watched others take on things I used to handle in my sleep. I watched a junior analyst present a slide with a formatting error I would have caught in seconds. I watched a project timeline slip by 2 days because no one sent the reminder I usually sent. I sat on my hands. I bit the inside of my cheek until it tasted metallic. I watched discomfort exist in the room without jumping in to dissolve it. And the terrifying thing? The world didn't end. The building didn't collapse. The error was fixed later. The timeline was adjusted. People learned. And because they had to learn, I finally had space to breathe. A month later, David scheduled a review. It wasn't the formal HR kind with checkboxes. He just pulled a chair up to my desk while the office was emptying out for lunch. "You've changed how the team operates," he said. It wasn't an accusation, it was an observation, spoken with a hint of wonder. "I didn't plan to," I replied honestly. "I just stopped compensating for the cracks in the process." He nodded slowly, spinning a pen between his fingers. "For a long time, we leaned on you," he admitted. He looked at me, really looked at me. "We leaned on you because it was easy, because you never pushed back." I thought about that word again, reliable, the word that used to be my badge of honor. "I thought that was my value," I said quietly. "I thought that's what made me valuable to the company." "It was," he replied, "but it was also your armor." I blinked. "My armor?" "As long as you were just the reliable one, you were safe," David said. "You couldn't be blamed for strategy because you were just executing. You couldn't fail because you never took the big risks. You used your reliability to hide from the possibility of being wrong." That stayed with me. It rattled around in my chest for days. He was right. I hadn't just been helping them. I had been hiding myself. Being reliable meant I was indispensable, but it also meant I was invisible. A few weeks after that, a new project started. It was messy, unclear, high visibility, the kind of project that makes careers or breaks them. The director stood at the front of the room. "Who should own this?" he asked. In the old days, the room's collective gaze would have magnetically snapped to me. The weight would have been transferred before I even exhaled. This time, I felt the tension in my neck, the reflex to say, "I'll do it." But I stayed quiet. I let the question hang. And the room didn't turn toward me. People looked at each other. "Maybe Sarah and Alex could co-lead," someone suggested. "Sarah on strategy, Alex on execution?" "No," I said. It was the first time I'd spoken. "I'll take the strategy piece. Sarah can handle the ops." The room paused. "Okay," the director said. "Let's try that." Ownership was negotiated, not assigned. I wasn't the safety net anymore. I was a player in the game. Later that day, I was at the coffee machine, watching the steam rise from my cup. A colleague, one of the senior leads, stopped by. "I didn't realize how much you were holding together," she lowered her voice, "until you stopped holding it." I smiled. It felt genuine. I didn't realize how heavy it was until I put it down. That night, at home, the apartment was quiet. The city lights were the same as they were months ago, but the view felt different. I opened the laptop. I found the old document, buried under new files. Real projects, bold ideas, risky proposals. The question still sat at the top, a ghost of a different life. What would break if I stopped protecting everyone else from discomfort? I looked at the blinking cursor. I thought about the awkward meetings, the angry emails, the uncomfortable silences, the terrifying feeling of being visible, of being open to criticism, of being real. I typed a new line beneath it. Some things did break. The silence broke, the comfort broke, the ceiling broke, and that's how better things finally had room to grow. I hadn't become louder, I hadn't become a different person, I had just become clearer, and for the first time, reliable wasn't the ceiling of my potential anymore. It wasn't my cage, it was just the floor, and I was finally standing on it.